Hello you gorgeous wonderful people, this is Chris from TechSpert and I'm here with Oppo's fresh new F11 Pro, its first smartphone launched in 2019. I reached out to the community and the popular consensus for a comparison was the Honor View 20, another great smartphone also launched in 2019, also offered great value for money. So here's my full side-by-side comparing the performance, the features, everything you need to know to see which one might be best for you. And don't forget to poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell down below for more on the latest and greatest mobile tech. Cheers! Now first of all, as you can see here, there is a little bit of a size difference if you stick them side by side. The Honor View 20 is the more compact of the two at just 6.4 inches, although that's helped along by the fact that its screen stretches almost to the very edges of this handset, helped along of course by the fact you've got that pinhole camera rather than a big fat notch or anything like that. Here on the Oppo F11 Pro, it's a bit of a monster at 6.53 inches. Once again though, that screen stretches almost edge to edge. There is no pinhole camera or notch or anything. That's because you do instead get a funky pop-up selfie cam. Love it. Should be fairly obvious though, no matter your choice here, you're going to go for a bit of a hand-filling monster. They're sort of reasonably comfortable to clutch, but one-handed use is a bit of a mare, helped along though, thankfully in both cases, by a one-handed mode. Here on the Honor View 20, it's just a case of swiping your finger along that navigation bar, as long as you've actually got the navigation bar in play. In the case of the Oppo F11 Pro though, you actually have to reach all the way up to that notifications tab and then tap the one-handed mode, so it's kind of awkward to activate. Not fantastic. Now flip both these phones over and as you'll see you get a nice glossy finish to them, quite unsurprising, that's pretty much every smartphone now in 2019. Very different finish on both of them though. Here on the Honor you get this very funky striation effect which you can see just when it hits the light just so. We definitely love that finish and the way the colour seems to morph between blue and purple as you tilt it about. It's a very sleek design. I'm also a big fan of the Oppo F11 Pro as well with its gradient style finish here. This is the Phantom Black model, as you can see. It's a nice black streak across the most of it, but then towards the opposing colours you get a nice purple and blue hue as well, just to help it stand out a bit. Both of these smartphones are fairly hardy, though I have noticed a couple of little scratches appearing here and there. Thankfully you do get a transparent cover bundled in the box, sorry that was a horrible noise, with both of these smartphones as well to help protect it if you want to be a little bit extra cautious. Sadly you don't get any kind of water resistance or anything like that. It'll be fine using them in the rain, but you definitely don't want to be, dunking them in the bath or anything like that. Now when it comes to the charging tech, the Honor View 20 of course sports Type-C reversible USB. Unfortunately it's the old school micro USB here on the Oppo F11 Pro, which is a bit of a shame. We're kind of hoping that was pretty much phased out of existence. You do get a 3.5mm headphone jack on both smartphones there. It's down here on the bottom of the Oppo and it's up top in the case of the Honor. And of course you get a rear mounted fingerprint sensor on both these smartphones as well. Works absolutely perfectly in both cases. Your finger just seems to fall naturally onto the sensor when you pick them up. Just a quick tap takes you straight into your smartphone. Lovely. And just quickly sticking with security as well, of course you do get facial recognition with both these smartphones as well, and it works really, really well even here on the Oppo F11 Pro where the camera actually has to pop up. So just tap that power button, as you can see, rises up. You've got the pinhole camera recognising your face here on the View 20. As you can see, it's really nippy. There's not actually much between them, despite the fact that that camera actually has to rise out the chassis and pop back down again. It's impressively swift. Now, as I mentioned before, these IPS displays stretch almost to the very, very edges of both these smartphones. You just have this tiny little pinhole camera intruding on the action here on the Honor View 20. It's a full HD display, so you get sort of pretty crisp visuals despite the fact they are really spacious screens as well. In a lot of apps, of course, you'll just get a black bar across the top of the Honor View 20 there to sort of mask the pinhole from view. And as you can see, it's a minor intrusion at best. As for the actual colour output, you don't get those really nice punchy in-your-face colours that you would get from an AMOLED and the really strong contrast, but the output is actually pretty decent. There's not much between them when it comes to the actual colour tones or anything like that, and as I mentioned before, the detail levels are pretty much the same. So if you want something to sort of browse your photos, watch a movie, things like that, you're not going to notice an incredible amount of difference between the two. They definitely do the job no matter what you're up to. On both phones you get a night mode or eye comfort mode as it's known here on the Honor View 20, and you can play around with the likes of the colour temperatures as well. You can actually scale back the vibrancy levels here on the Honor View 20 if you want, although we haven't noticed that it makes an incredible amount of difference when you're actually browsing your photos and stuff. All it seems to do is just make the colour temperature that little bit warmer. As for the audio, as I mentioned before, they've both got 3.5mm headphone jacks. If you do want to use the built-in speakers, then we actually prefer the output on the Honor View 20. They both rock a single mono speaker on the bottom. They don't have a stereo speaker arrangement or anything. Just play you a little bit from the F11 Pro on top volume first.
Turn down for what? Turn down.
followed by the Honor View 20, again on top volume. Both sound a little bit distorted on that top volume. We definitely wouldn't recommend blasting music out of either of them really. But it definitely sounds a little bit more punchy on the View 20, a little bit crisper, a little bit more bassy as well. And now onto the part of the comparison that's always an absolute ball ache because there's so much to talk about. It's the actual software running on both of these handsets. So the Oppo F11 Pro and the Honor View 20 both rock Android Pie, the latest version of Android, which is always nice to see. Of course, they are using the manufacturer's own overlays, so you've got a nice bit of ColorOS version 6, the latest version here on the Oppo. And in the case of the Honor View 20, you have the Magic UI, which is basically Huawei's Emotion UI under a slightly different name. And it's version 2, which is basically, again, the latest version. Now, even though the general sort of style, the look and feel is quite a bit different once you dive into like the fonts, the icons, that sort of thing, they share quite a lot of the same features. They just have a different way of doing things as well. So of course you've got the same one-handed mode in both cases, but it's a lot easier to activate here on the Honor View 20. You also have full gesture support as well, which you can swap to at any time. So as you can see here, you can have an old school navigation dock on both smartphones. Otherwise, you've got also a bit of gesture support if you'd rather just, for instance, swipe up to go back home on both of these smartphones, swipe up and hold in order to bring up the recent apps. And you've got a few other options here as well. The Oppo F11 Pro actually goes to extremes with all kinds of different methods you can use. So if you like flexibility, that's definitely an impressive option. Because once you start diving into some other features, then you'll notice a few differences. So for instance, you've got the digital balance here on the Honor View 20, which acts as kind of like a parental guidance kind of mode, which is quite handy if you're going to be handing your phone to kids. Here on the Oppo F11 Pro, you've actually got a handy sort of smart assistant shelf type feature which gives you fast access to all your favorite contacts and everything, which you don't get here on the Honor View 20. You just get the standard Google feed. As usual, I could spend hours going through all the little differences and similarities and everything, but it would take absolutely forever. The most important thing is that ColorOS has finally introduced a friggin' apps drawer, so you can actually tidy away your apps just like you can here on the Honor View 20 as well. Thank Christ you don't have them all scattered about all over your desktops. Now when it comes to performance, there is only one winner here, and it is the Honor View 20 by a country mile. A little bit of Geekbench and you'll clearly immediately see a difference between the two. The View 20 absolutely trounces the F11 Pro, and that's because packed inside the View 20 you get Huawei's latest Kirin 980 chipset, backed by the 6 or 8 gigs of RAM. I believe this is the 6 gig model. On the Oppo F11 Pro, the performance is rather scaled back. You get a MediaTek MTK P70 Helios processor, and that's backed in this case again by 6 gigs of RAM. Even though Helios announced at basically the same sort of time as the Kirin 980, as you can see, it is a much more modest performer. Thankfully, ColorOS is pretty efficient when it comes to the resource management. It can actually freeze resources in the background instead of culling them. The other goal is that the View 20 basically does open apps instantly as soon as you tap them, whereas there is a brief pause here on the Oppo F11 Pro, but certainly nothing important. Where that performance gap really rears its ugly head, however, is when you're doing a bit of gaming with an intensive title like PubG Mobile. Here on the Honor View 20, the default settings are set to HD graphics with a high frame rate. We certainly noticed no problems whatsoever with that frame rate when blasting through a whole half-hour game. That's helped along, of course, by the GPU turbo feature, which is built in. Go check out my feature on that if you don't know what that thing actually is. In the case of the Oppo F11 Pro, it's set to balanced graphics by default, and as you can see, medium frame rate. Definitely noticed a few stutters here and there on the Oppo F11 Pro. I've done a full glance at the PubG performance if you want to know more on that. The game is definitely playable on both of these handsets, but you will get the better experience here on the View 20 despite the little annoying pinhole notch thing. That said, here on the Oppo F11 Pro you do get the rather nifty game space tool, which just helps you to block your notifications, you can reject calls, you can actually record your gaming session, take screenshots, and you can bring up these handy little windows so you can actually chat with people in real life at the same time as you're gaming, just if you're in a bit of a break. For some reason my Honor View 20 didn't come with Huawei's Game Suite app pre-installed. You can just download the APK, and that does a similar sort of thing, again blocking those notifications and just managing your resources in the background. Now the good news here is, no matter your choice, you will get a massive 4000 mAh cell packed inside that smartphone. Of course you do get the Type-C USB charge in here on the Honor View 20, a bit of Huawei's Supercharge, which proves a little bit nippier than the VOOC 3.0 micro USB charge in here on the Oppo F11 Pro. Neither phone supports a wireless charger or anything like that, however. And if we dive on into the settings, go to the storage as well, you'll see that you get a choice of either 64 or 128 gigs here on the Oppo F11 Pro, whereas in the case of the Honor View 20, it's actually a choice of 128 or 256 gigs. Although either should do the job just for downloading a few apps and all that kind of shenanigans. And now finally, let's talk camera tech. You actually get a 48 megapixel snapper slapped on the back of both these smartphones as well. In case of the Honor View 20, this is backed by a time of flight lens, which doesn't really seem to do anything at this particular juncture. On the Oppo F11 Pro, you get a more basic 5 megapixel depth sensor for those portrait shots. The camera experiences are of course very different between these two smartphones. As you can see, you start obviously in the auto photo mode. You can just take a quick shot with a tap of the shutter button. You've got a couple other basic modes that you can swap between here on the Oppo F11 Pro, video and portrait mode, which uses those two lenses to snap on your subject, keep them nice and crisp while blurring the background. Here on the Honor View 20, you've got access to loads of other bonus modes right here at the bottom. And as if that wasn't enough, they both also have a more section, which in the case of the Honor View 20, as you can see there, packs in quite a lot of stuff. Both phones can recognize a wide variety of scenes and tweak the settings in order to match. It's the AI mode up here in the case of the Honor View 20, and as you can see, it's already doing a bit of scene recognition here on the F11 Pro as well. Thought that the general photography standards on both these smartphones are absolutely fine. The Honor View 20 holds up better in HDR situations for sure. So anything with strong contrast, you'll get a nice, cleanly more balanced shot here on the View 20, whereas the Oppo F11 Pro does tend to struggle. That said, the F11 Pro did impress us on indoor shots, and both smartphones also rock a night mode, which takes a long exposure shot, and again just produces nice balanced results, especially if you're shooting a cityscape at night. Got all those lighter elements against a nice dark sky. You'll find that they come out nice and crisp without any blowouts or anything like that. And when it comes to the video chops, the Honor View 20 is definitely the more capable of the two. It can shoot all the way up to 4K Ultra HD resolution footage or Full HD at that 60 FPS level, whereas on the case of the Oppo F11 Pro, it's a lot more basic, basically 720p or 1080p, that's your whack. At Full HD level, you'll get decent image stabilization on both smartphones, and the actual image stabilization at Ultra HD here on the Honor View 20 ain't too bad either, to be perfectly honest. And then if we flip around to the front-facing selfie cameras, of course the little pop-up effort here on the Oppo F11 Pro, and it's a 16 megapixel snapper here, whereas you get 25 megapixel here on the Honor View 20. The phones can take perfectly decent selfies again. The Honor View 20 seems to cope slightly better with those HDR situations. And you've got a portrait mode with both as well, despite the fact it is just a single lens snapper. And again, seems to work alright. And then if you swap to video, as you can see, you get much more of a wider angle here on the Oppo F11 Pro compared with the Honor View 20. And of course, they both top off at 1080p Full HD as well if you want to shoot a nice bit of vlog action. So that right there in a nutshell is the Oppo F11 Pro versus the Honor View 20. As you can see, as far as the performance is concerned, the Honor View 20 has definitely got it. So if that's important to you, if you do a lot of gaming on the go, then that's your huckleberry right there. It's also slightly stronger in some areas such as that camera tech, but both smartphones boast some pretty decent software, as long as you don't mind quite a heavy overlay sat on top of Android Pie. And I've got to say, I do love that pop-up camera. It may be a gimmick, but damn, it is a cute gimmick. So what do you reckon? Definitely let us know in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. If you've persevered all the way to the end, then good on you. And don't forget to poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest mobile tech. Cheers everyone, love you!